Video number 2, the train station scene. Hi, I'm Paul Lovett, and this is video number 2 about the diorama. And I'd like to use it to introduce you to the train station scene, the first modular table that I created. Here you're seeing Dr. Beebe's house, the Brighton Hotel, and that's where the back porch is today, which was at the time the Marvell, Satterfield House, the Wingate House, and Oster's Notions. Now let's cross Rehoboth Avenue at First Street. Looks like there's an outgoing train. And there's a couple saying goodbye on the platform. The track you see here is the spur to Laurel Street for freight. And there's the merry-go-round. And now back at First Street level, we see the Queen Anne boarding house with some street vendors. Now let's head back up toward the beach from First Street. First thing you have to do is cross over that spur railroad track. Then you'll pass by the excursion building owned by the railroad, the merry-go-round, Blackiston's Pavilion, and finally Truett's boarding house, which also housed the post office. I'd like to get you oriented to the diorama because folks have trouble figuring out what they're seeing. Now, where's the ocean? And then I'd like to introduce you to the other scenes that will be part of the diorama, and then I'll come back to the train station scene for some final thoughts. You're seeing the diorama in front of me from the vantage point of a drone that would be above the boardwalk right at the end of Rehoboth Avenue. The beach and ocean are at your back. Got it? You can see the train station at the center of Rehoboth Avenue. In 1910, the track brought the train from Lewis straight up the center of the avenue to the station, which was also at the center of the avenue. So this is Rehoboth Avenue in 1910, sidewalk to sidewalk. Rehoboth Avenue was split into two. Here's Rehoboth Avenue South, and here's Rehoboth Avenue North. Both north and south were two-way for the horse-drawn carriages and delivery wagons and a few Model T cars that would go along the avenue. The speed limit was 6 miles an hour. To allow some space to position the buildings along the avenue, I added enough width outside of the avenue to accommodate the buildings on each side. That's 150 feet here and 150 feet here. Everything in the diorama is in N scale, just large enough so that the details of the structure can be evident. Now, I'm going to adjust your perspective, bringing you back to where I am right now. Using Google Earth, let's look at a current day aerial view of Rehoboth Avenue between First Street, here, and the ocean up here. The box outlines the train station scene part of the diorama. In 1910, the train station was right here. Across from what you can see today is Nicola's Pizza. Here's Cuda Brown's. Here's the Robin Hood restaurant, and here's the big brick front building that houses the shirt factory today. Now let's look at the same scene from an aerial image taken in 1925. This aerial photo from 1925 is the closest I can come to replicating that same scene in the early 1900s. In 1910, the airplane hadn't been invented yet. By way of orientation, notice the fishing pier. This is Rehoboth's second fishing pier, not the one that you will see in the diorama's beach scene. I'll leave you to reflect on why that might be. Again, let me focus on the area I call the train station scene. Of course, the most striking difference between today and 95 years ago, remember it's 1925 in this picture, is the track that went straight up Rehoboth Avenue, the train station itself, the freight house, and here's a passenger train car. Remember our walk down the avenue earlier in this video. The Beebe Cottage is in the shadows of the Brayton Hotel. But you can clearly see the Brayton Hotel with its gables. The only structures in this image with remnants that exist today are the Brayton Hotel and the Marvell boarding house next door. I'll bring you back to those buildings in a future video. Most of the buildings on the north side of this 1925 picture were there in 1910, the date the diorama is meant to depict. Here's the Satterfield residence, the Wingate residence, and Oster's Notions. On the south side, however, this 1925 image is quite different from what you would have seen in 1910. Well, here's the Queen Anne cottage, so it survived, and here's Truett's boarding house with its distinctive roof line. But why is there an empty lot here? Do you remember what we saw on our walk? And this is certainly not the two-story Blackiston building. Again, I leave you to reflect on why the differences until I present my south side of Rehoboth Avenue video in the next couple of weeks. From the same vantage point, here's an aerial view of the diorama depicting 1910 Rehoboth Beach. Not much to discuss here since you have already walked the avenue at street level earlier in this video. This scene, however, will be filled out with additional carriages, wagons, and a few more scrawny trees. Model A cars were not available in 1910 and will be replaced with 9-passenger horse-drawn carriages that took arriving passengers on the train to their hotel, boarding house, or summer cottage. You may have missed a couple of scenes during your walk down Rehoboth Avenue earlier in this video. I wonder if you saw them. Anna Beebe was standing on the porch of the Beebe cottage. She is now 100 years old. And here on the diorama, she is ready to walk with her mother across Rehoboth Avenue to the post office housed in Truett's boarding house. The mail would have just come in on the morning train. Did you notice the water tower? and Harry Satterfield was walking down his sidewalk, headed for his shift as a porter on the train on the leg going from Rehoboth to Georgetown. My grandfather, G. Frank Jones, was standing by his horse outside of Auster's Notions, where he was surely about to go in for a game of pool and a cigar. Mr. Thompson was driving his horse-drawn buckboard loaded with an upright piano that he was transporting from the freight house to the Queen Anne cottage. Did you see the newspaper and magazine stand that is said to have been the origin of Browseabout books? Or the checkers game on the porch of Blackiston Pavilion? All of these images were evident in your walk down Rehoboth Avenue earlier in this video. So if you happen to have missed them, you'll either have to rewatch this video or wait a couple of weeks until my future videos bring them back to life. Here's a picture of the skirt of the train station scene table. When things get back to normal, I figure folks will visit this display and want to know just a little bit more about each structure or feature. Here's where they will find that detail. At the bottom of each placard is the name of the sponsor for that feature. I am fortunate that every structure and main feature on the train station scene has been sponsored by a person or folks who are inspired by the project, moved by Rehoboth Beach history, train enthusiasts, or those who have an ancestral interest in the building. Here's a list of the sponsors for the train station scene. In the same order, you'll note, as our walk down the avenue. These sponsorships are what allow me to sustain this project. If you are so inclined to sponsor a feature, and there are 70 more buildings to be built, here's my contact information. Email me or call me. So we've come to the end of this video. The next few videos will highlight stories about the individual buildings that line Rehoboth Avenue. Watch for them.